When a disaster first happens, people's lives literally stop. Whether you're directly impacted or not, these usually very dramatic and sensational events have a habit of making everyone sit up and take note. Bringing people and communities together, the media plays a big role in getting safety messages out and reporting the often devastating facts. But what actually happens once the headlines stop? Kate Brady, the Red Cross's National Recovery Coordinator, knows all too well, and she joins me now from Melbourne to discuss. Kate, welcome. On average, how many people in Australia are affected by disasters each year?
In the last decade, more than 600,000 people in Australia have been impacted by disasters and more than 700 people have lost their lives. At Red Cross, we're planning for that number to increase over the coming years with the results of changing climate and the changes to population.
What's the usual initial impact response time and what takes place during this period?
The impacts really vary depending on the hazard. In some disasters we see almost no notice and the impacts are very sudden, very quick and surprising. In some cases we have some warning, so for example like a cyclone, we might have some warning that the cyclone is coming, and for others it's a slow onset disaster, so things like slow moving floods or droughts. In that initial stage, that impact stage of a disaster, it's often very confusing and very overwhelming. It can be very frightening. People need information to tell them what they need to know, and also they may be looking for loved ones. That's one of the things that Red Cross helps with. They help them reconnect with loved ones that they may have been separated from during a disaster.
Once that initial impact and response takes place, that's really when the recovery effort begins, isn't it?
Yeah, recovery is a really long journey and it starts on the day that the disaster happens. We know that people's recovery journey can really be impacted by the event itself, their experience of the event, and the type of support that they get afterwards. And so that's why agencies such as Red Cross provide support from day one about recovery. Recovery is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It goes for a very long time and long-term support is needed.
What sort of things are people dealing with, say, 1 month or even 1 year on?
As I say, the impacts of disasters are very long lasting. Around the 1 month mark, it would be really common for us to be seeing people still very impacted by adrenaline, having a lot of adrenaline in their bodies and trying to work out, really basic things like housing solutions and things like that. Around the 6 month mark, we tend to see people being able to make a bigger assessment about what has happened as a result of the disaster and the longer term impacts that are going to happen. Around the 12 month mark, we see the first anniversary happening. It's a really upsetting and very emotional time for a lot of people, and we often see people very exhausted. It's really common for people to be feeling very fatigued at this stage. Recovery takes a really long time. It's very much a marathon, not a sprint, and it's very common for recovery to take much longer than a year.
Survivors of disasters can be prone to post-traumatic shock or mental illness as well. This can be an even longer road to recovery, can't it?
Yes, some people certainly can be impacted by things like post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health problems. One of the things that research tells us, which is quite positive, is that most people will recover from a disaster and not be impacted by serious mental health concerns, provided they have the support of friends and family in the long term. However, if people do feel like that they need some extra help, help is available, and I would really encourage them to seek it. For friends and family, the more support that they can provide, the better off people's recovery is going to be, but at the same time, help is available if you need more.